Thanks for hanging in there with us as we continue our trek down the road. A big announcement this week, NDSU. Let me give you some numbers from the foundation. And in just a sec, we're going to be joined by John Glover, President and CEO of North Dakota State University's foundation. But the goal was $400 million. That's an ambitious goal, to raise $400 million in contributions to the campus and to the university. There was an announcement from John and his staff that they raised $586.7 million. That's a big difference, and it's a difference in the right way. Let's visit with him. John, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Thanks for the opportunity, Joel. Great to be here.
So, are you done partying? It's a fair question.
Not a lot of sleep.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, that's a big difference. What happened?
Well, this is a testament to the belief and confidence that alumni and friends and business partners and charitable foundations have in the direction of NDSU and its future. I mean, that's flat out what it is. When you're talking about an entity, an individual wanting to part with their hard-earned money and give back and make a difference, most of those folks are going to be pretty thoughtful and intentional about what they want to support. And it turns out people love NDSU. And so that's really what this was about, is maximizing that over the last few years.
When did you know that it was going to be that big? And when did you sense it? Did you sense it before the $400 million? Could you feel a momentum growing? I mean, when did you sense it?
Well, a little bit of the timeline, just to kind of help people put this in perspective. I mean, this is not a one-day event. This is not a one-year event. You know, we began planning and organizing for a campaign of some size and scale back in early 2016. So we began, if you want to say, counting and securing gifts from donors early in the process. During that time, the university really established its priorities in terms of what do we need dollars for. And President Brashani said at the top of the list, while the entire campus needs to benefit, scholarships were the most important thing. And so we've been at this work for 6 years. And it turned out that when we publicly launched in the fall of 19, we were ahead of schedule, which was fantastic. And that's when we announced, hey, we're going to raise, our goal is to raise $400 million. 6 months later, COVID hit. We can't forget that in the middle of this, we all get sent back to our homes, and
there's no wine, there's no cheese, there's no crackers,
there's no getting on the road and having a dinner conversation, a cup of coffee over your kitchen table. I mean that, and it turns out that a lot of the folks that we talked to, this whole Zoom thing, we didn't know about it, right? Yeah. So our team and volunteers, we had to persevere through that stretch as well. But with all those things, we hit $400 million. 20 months earlier than originally scheduled. So I would say, probably back to the answer to your question, I would say at that point it was clear that this was going to be something special. And what we decided to do was, rather than continue to run out the clock through the end of what was originally scheduled for the end of this year, we said, let's end it a year early, kind of put a bow on it, celebrate, and move on to the next. Mm-hmm. And then 2021 this last year was just fantastic for so many reasons. People began to come out of COVID a little bit, regain confidence. People's pocketbooks felt a little bit fuller, and really had a pretty special fall in terms of seeing benefactors step forward to push us to where we ended.
Commodity prices didn't hurt a bit either.
Right? Yeah. I mean, just stock. The stock market did extremely well. There are liquidity events, as we like to call them, that happen out there for our alums who own businesses and those kinds of things. And all of that adds up to then, what can I do to be able to make a difference? And NDSU is one of those places at the top of the list.
Okay. When you look at it, how does it work in this sense? Does somebody say, you bet, I'm in for $1 million, John? I and Harriet have reached a point in our life where this institution is so important to us, and this is one of the donations we want to make before we pass. And so here's $1 million. Or do you get somebody saying, all right, I'll give it to you, but I'm going to give it to you in installments. I'm going to give you, out of that $1 million, I'll give you $250K a year for the next 4 years. I mean, how do you set this up? How does it work?
Yeah, the answer is yes to all of the above. And it's really a part of the conversation one-on-one that we have with the donor. Highly personalized. I mean, your interests, your situation, your affairs are unique to you and your family. And that may not be the case for the next individual that we're going to go see later that day. And so we are afforded the opportunity to really be creative and flexible with donors to be able to help them achieve what they want to do in terms of impact. What I would say as an example is of how you kind of get to a gift level. Oftentimes what we encourage donors to think about is answering the question, what would you like to do with your money that would be most meaningful to you? Mm-hmm. Unpacking that conversation then leads to perhaps a scholarship. Okay, what kind of impact do you want? You know, we talk about this is the cost of attendance for 1 year for a kid to attend NDSU. Do you want to pay for 10%? Do you want to pay for 50%? Do you want to pay for all of it? We can kind of back into the kind of numbers to create the kind of gift that a donor wants to do.
So with that in mind, how often do the donors look at you and say, you know, I want this building named after my widow. The check's going to be this big. Or I want it to go to this department because that's the department I graduated from and a huge part of how I became a success in life and can write you a check like this. How much can they dictate what's going to be done with the money once it gets into your hand?
Right, 99.5% of it.
Okay.
Yeah. This, so it really is a unique environment where you have the organization of which we're here to support, which is NDSU. They clearly have priorities and thoughts about what they would do with dollars. But then certainly the benefactor community, they have thoughts about how they would like to see their gift go to work or gifts. And where the real magic happens is when you can bring those things together. And that's a part of the conversation. And so sometimes the institution's priorities don't win out. There may be some on campus who really think that we need a new building for a certain program, but it turns out there's no appetite or interest from the donor community, and maybe the state doesn't want to get involved with something like that. So the institution kind of has to let that one fall away, right? Building projects are unique because you really got to find, you know, both entities coming together because you can't build a building at 50%. You got to get the whole thing, and you got to get it all in current cash. We have no donors who leave a building in their estate because you can't build it on a future gift that's not yet received, right?
That makes sense because you still got to run it after they're done.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So that's those are all a part of what turns out to be very individualized one-on-one conversations that we've been at for 6 years. And this is, again, a credit to our foundation staff, our campus partners, our academic deans, our athletic director, president, other key leaders, our partners as a part of this dialogue and relationship building to be able to make this happen. So kudos to them too.
You know what I'm going to ask you? I've got that smile on your face. How helpful is it to have a national championship football team? What have they won? 9 times out of the last 10 years? I mean, yeah, how helpful is that? It gets people on campus, you know that.
Yeah, well, and it generates attention and visibility for the institution. Last time I checked, the football team is called North Dakota State University. And it turns out that talking about North Dakota State University football is a good thing to talk about. Mm-hmm. And so when we're in the relationship building mode and with alums, with friends, with wherever they are, we all get big smiles on our face when we want to talk about it. And it turns out then that leads into really a pretty fun, engaging, meaningful conversation. And yes, we have tremendous financial supporters for Bison Athletics, and it's needed. Well, but it translates to so many other areas of campus that are the beneficiaries out of those great, wonderful, positive conversations.
If I were any one of those Big Ten schools, I'd be calling you right now. And I'd be saying, John, you succeeded, you set your goal, you exceeded it, pack your bags, I'll even pay you more, get here. you know, my answer to you is don't leave North Dakota. Stay here. We need you.